The Summer Olympic opening ceremonies kick off in just a few hours in Tokyo, with concerns about COVID casting a shadow over the Games. For the latest, let's go to our friend, USA Today columnist and ABC News contributor Christine Brennan. Between the Summer and Winter Games, she's covered 19 straight Olympics, going back to the Summer Games in Los Angeles in 1984. Christine, thank you so much for joining us.
Byron, it's great to be with you. Thanks. Welcome to the Games from Tokyo.
All right. Here's what you wrote in your front page column earlier this week. Headline: Summer Olympic Nightmare Scenario Becomes Reality, after athletes, including an American on the women's gymnastics team, started testing positive for the coronavirus. So are these going to be known as the COVID Olympics? How can they not be? I mean, Olympic organizers had hoped against hope that the pandemic would not affect the Tokyo Games any more than it already had. Now their worst fears have been realized. You're there in Tokyo. How much is COVID overshadowing and altering the spirit of these games compared to past Olympics?
Oh, Byron, there's absolutely no comparison. These are the COVID Olympics. COVID attached itself to these Olympics back in March of 2020 when they were postponed. The first and only time ever an Olympic Games has been postponed. And this whole year, as we all have lived, every single one of us, we know what our lives were like during the pandemic. And now here we are. The International Olympic Committee was hopeful that by this point, by July of 2021, the world would be coming out of the pandemic and that this would be a joyous celebration of that moment. As we all know, that has not come to pass. It's the complete opposite. The world is still plunged into, in many ways, the middle of this pandemic, obviously with the Delta variant and others, even in the United States, where we're doing a pretty good job on vaccinations compared to other nations. Obviously, we're still now seeing new waves and all of the heartache and the sadness and the concern. And so these Olympics are mirroring the world's concern for COVID. It is not the escape and the joy and the relief. It is, in fact, the reality of turning the mirror from these Olympic Games onto the world. And, of course, the way these games are, they're almost unrecognizable, Byron, from previous Olympics I've covered. It's just an entirely different feeling. It's a shame. It's so unfortunate. But they're pressing on. And tonight, Tokyo time, in the morning U.S. time, the Games will start with the opening ceremony.
That's encouraging, but it's heartbreaking to hear what's really going on the ground there. The Olympics, we all know, are supposed to pit the best athletes in their sports against each other. Is there concern some winners could be diminished if their events see top athletes knocked out by a positive COVID test or contact tracing?
If that happened, yes, it would diminish it. But so far, we've certainly heard, of course, of positive COVID tests. We've heard, obviously, the U.S. gymnastics alternate was the big news for the United States. There have been some Czech men's volleyball players, South African men's soccer players, but nothing, no huge headliners, let's put it that way. If that were to occur, obviously, that would alter the competition. If a huge name or a gold medal favorite is knocked out. And, of course, we've got now 2.5 weeks to see how there's, or 2 weeks and I guess 16, 17 days to see how it goes. But no, I think, frankly, the one thing that can save these Olympics is the competition. When we get down to it, when people are watching swimming and running and gymnastics, and if they're enjoying it, then they'll say, hey, this looks like the Olympic Games just without fans in the stands. So I think the competition actually can save these games and make them look a little bit like previous Olympics.
Sure. So much still unknown. Switching gears, these games coming as a debate over athletes protesting over racial injustice has once again become a flashpoint. So what's being allowed on athletes to protest in these games, and what do you expect to see?
It's already happened, as I think you know. Obviously, the women's soccer and women's softball has begun. And in the women's soccer matches, I believe almost every country, certainly U.S. and Sweden and some of the others that played the other day, all took a knee as the game began. And Thomas Bach, the International Olympic Committee president, was asked about this in a news conference that I was at the other day, and he said that's within the rules. Taking a knee before you compete. So that's a huge change. That would never have been allowed before, although I'm not sure if they wouldn't have thrown out every soccer team if that is punishment. No, of course. But that's the change. That's Black Lives Matter. That's the tragedy of George Floyd gone worldwide. Extended worldwide, and we're already seeing it. So we've seen it, and that's allowed, and that's fine. The difference is they don't want protests on the medal stand. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, Byron, has said that they would allow that. They are much more forgiving than most because, of course, it's the U.S., because, of course, it's where Black Lives Matter began, and Colin Kaepernick and George Floyd and everything that comes with that, that story and the various storylines. The USOPC is not going to send anyone home. But the one thing you don't want, if the medal stand turns into a complete free-for-all of flag waving and protests, you get every protest. You get the protests we like, and you get the protests we wouldn't like, for example, a Nazi symbol on a medal stand with an Israeli athlete in their face. We don't want that. So this gets very dicey if you let everyone protest everything. And I think the IOC is hoping to have this compromise of before the actual medal stand. And then, of course, the athletes have social media. And that, over the last 20 years, that has developed to such a platform for them where they can get the word out. And in press conferences, they can say anything. There is certainly no censorship in that area at all.
Sure. And final question, my friend. We reported earlier that these Olympics will see an almost equal number of male and female athletes competing for the first time. Just how significant is that for women's sports?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And the U.S. has been leading the way on that because of Title IX, 49 years old. Big 50th anniversary will be next year in June of 2022. That's, of course, the law that opened the floodgates for women and girls to play sports in this country like their brothers had been playing for decades. And the U.S. the U.S. Olympic team is 54% women. That's astounding. And we have seen that the last 3 Olympic Games, more than 50%. So with the U.S. leading the way, the world obviously is there too. And this is as close as it's ever been to 50-50. And another Olympics or two, it will reach that and maybe even surpass, with women having more spots than men.
Times have changed. Always good to see you, my friend. Our thanks to Christine Brennan.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.